गुड मॉर्निंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। एंड टुडे यू नो द नीडल इज मूविंग अवे फ्रॉम चाइना एंड मेक नो मिस्टेक अबाउट दैट। वेल, lot of lots happening in Greenland, lots happening in Iran, lots happening everywhere. But today I thought let me focus back on China, because at the end of the day, he's our main problem. China is our main problem, and you got to keep a finger on its pulse. Why do I say the needle is moving away from China? And you have to understand it from a couple of viewpoints. This is partly internal and partly external. In fact, what has happened is, if you look at China, China internally things were bad. We knew it, and they're not improving. We know that also. But externally, things were okay. They were looking at import, exports, all that. Even now, they have reported that in 2025, they have a $1.2 trillion surplus in exports. That's also fine, because that comes with a tinge of doubt, because they might be exporting hell of a lot. Are they earning for it? No. It See what is that is it's a $1.2 trillion surplus, trade surplus. They're exporting hell of a lot. They're not importing. Why are they not importing? That's the question. One, right? Uh, this is not because of extra production. Remember this. This is not because of extra production. This is because of not importing. One. Number two, whatever they're exporting, exporting at low cost. And because they are exporting at low cost, there's no profit. So things are not that rosy. And over and above that, certain geopolitical events have happened, which we know: Venezuela, Iran, all this. But the more interesting part is something is happening closer home, and we'll see this now on in the backdrop of overall what's happening. You know, I read this article. It's very interesting. This is in Guancha. It came yesterday, and okay. In fact, I read it yesterday. It might have come a couple of days back. It says you can't rely on China. Cambodia should not play balance at this time. Well, Cambodia should not play balance. So that means there's something happening in Cambodia. And Cambodia was supposed to be China's backyard. Okay. And let me tell you something about Cambodia, because I've been there. When I went there, what I saw was that everything there was Chinese. Whatever you buy there is Chinese. Okay. The people think Chinese. The scooters are Chinese. The bikes are Chinese. Everything you buy, you go to a market and you want to buy anything, you get only Chinese items. And when we spoke of India there, we were looking like fools in Phnom Penh, which is their capital. Went around to their villages and all that. Well, that's a different story. Everything is Chinese. Buses were Chinese. Everything was Chinese. But interestingly, the currency was dollar. They have some Cambodian baht or something like that, which no one uses. I don't know whether they use it internally also. I mean, I don't think so, because even in restaurants which I went and saw, it's all in dollars. Can you imagine? In a restaurant, the rate list is in dollars. Anyway, that's the kind of a thing. That's the dichotomy of Cambodia. Okay, which was once upon a time a French colony and all that. A lot of French influence in Phnom Penh. Now, when you see such an article, then you start thinking, yeah, what's happening? Why? Because at some point of time, China took over Cambodia. Cambodia was supposed to, Laos and Cambodia were supposed to be the backyard of China. They're satellite state countries of China. You could just say, okay, for Cambodia, read China, and that was it. In that kind of a thing, people are now looking at alternative. This comes out very interestingly from not from the top level of Cambodia. It's come out from the bottom. They want their options open. They want to keep other options. They want to keep other options away from China. And China is very pissed about it. What can they do? They can do nothing. They can't go and invade Cambodia. And it's not now. This is not a feeling which is today. Go back in time. He quotes in August 2025. I mean, 4 months back, 5 months back. A large number of Cambodian monks marched through Phnom Penh with portraits of Trump. Oh, look at that. So they're taking, and he's shown the photograph in this, right? To thank Trump for his key role in mediating the Cambodia-Thai conflict. This picture is particularly dazzling and intriguing in the country that was once widely regarded as Beijing's most reliable partner. This is the Chinese chap's writing. And now, look, what happened in August was isolated affair. Forget about it. But he's writing today, yeah. Because now that Cambodian minister has come out and said, he says we need something else, right? He says Cambodia can survive by not choosing sides. Okay. And Cambodia doesn't want to get caught between fights between elephants. We don't want to choose sides. We need to keep our options open. Well, there's something happening, isn't it? Why? And uh, and that statement has come out this month, recently. Obviously, China's grip on Cambodia is loosening. Whether it will tighten back or not is to be seen. But there's a shift. That's why I said there's a shift in the needle. Okay. Look at where Cambodia is. Here. This is Cambodia. Little far away, as you see. Yeah, but it's not so far. Why? From China to Laos to Cambodia, it's one natural extension along the spine of what once was called the Indochina Peninsula. Okay? Or today the Southeast Asian Peninsula. Call it what you want, the Thai Peninsula. I mean, the countries here are Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos. If you include some part of Myanmar, so be it. I would call it the heartland of ASEAN. And in this heartland of ASEAN, from Laos to Cambodia, China was planning a rail. So to connect, why they had a port at Siem Reap, or not Siem Reap, at Reap Naval Base. They wanted to have a naval base so that then finally, the big plan of China, if you remember, was get down things here, a base here, from there go across to the Kra Isthmus, cut through that Kra Canal, go through and come to and solve the Malacca dilemma. So instead of going all the way here, they wanted to come from here. That was the grand plan. Come through Laos, Cambodia, eh, get into the ships in Cambodia, their goods, and from there, Kra Canal and out. No Malacca, no all that. All that is gone now. The or rather the Reap naval base is still here, but no one talks of it today. Because the action in the South China Sea is here, not here. And people are not interested in China. That's the shift. If Cambodia today talks, you will see more coming out. Already Japan is cutty. Remember, They're worried about Japan and they're taking steps against Japan. That's the interesting part. Actually speaking, China has become defensive. It's not offensive anymore. Their thinking is offensive, defensive. See this. It came out day before yesterday in New York Times. Thousands of Chinese fishing boats uh, quietly form vast sea barriers. They're forming sea barriers like this, and just see how they're doing it. Yeah. Okay. If there's a sea barrier like this, whom does it affect? Yeah, they're trying to have a look at again, like ants. Whom are they trying to, stop? Japan, not Taiwan. It's Japan. There's again. So they've gone the defensive against Japan. So far, they didn't think of these sea barriers. Yeah, it's and they've been practicing it. This is on 11th. Okay, this is on 11th January. They went into this formation. It took them 3-4 days to come into this formation, and then on Christmas Day they were in this formation. They're forming a barrier with civil militia. Call it lawfare, call it warfare, whatever. 290 miles. Of course, there'll be. It's not. This is more a peacetime gray zone warfare which they're conducting, not for a actual war. Actual war, these chaps will be blown to smithereens. One shell in between and end of the story. After all, they are just normal fishing boats. 5-6 ships sink, they'll break ranks and go. You're not proper PLA. Okay, but they can be used for blockades and things like that. They'll do that. You'll see what next blockade you might find these chaps loafing around there. Okay, against Taiwan. But the fact is, the shift is what? China has started looking more into its own periphery than, away. It seems that it's getting constrained. Its own problems will, now start increasing. Of course, this whole story of, this movement of the militia shipping, right? That gray zone warfare will play itself out. We will see what China's story is. It's not given up. Let's be very clear, but the needle is shifting. Okay. Now let's get to South America. Everyone said Delcy Rodriguez, Trump has put, what a bad choice. Many people are saying Trump has lost out in Venezuela and all. See, Wall Street Journal says Delcy Rodriguez goes from pariah to the US pick to lead Venezuela. What's happening in Venezuela? Because that understanding that now is critical to what's going to happen to China. Trump picked Delcy Rodriguez over Corina Machado, but he's kept Corina Machado in the play. He took her medal, the Nobel Prize medal, and she said he's given her promises of elections and all. But at the same time, he's kept Delcy Rodriguez in play. Who was the vice president? He's got the authority. He's put her in as the president. There were two guys who were other chaps. I think the Minister of Interior and the Minister of and their defense minister, who was supposed to be strong and all that. Hardcore communists, or whatever you call them, socialists and nothing like that, or the part of the Bolivian story. Now, slowly, this lady has maneuvered them with the help of Trump. And I'm sure she'll kill one of them. I mean, kill in the sense, finish off one of them and sort out the other. I mean, she's maneuvered. What is that maneuver all about? She said, I'll take care of Venezuela, you take care of my oil. Deal simple. Things have changed. She's adjusted the fact that China will not be there. By now, she would have realized Chinese will not help. She's the gun is on the head of Venezuela. With the see the ships have not left. Trump has not lifted the blockade. That example of Venezuela is going to be resounding all over, and it has already started. That is why Cambodia has also spoken now. Okay, she's jumped ship from China. No more. And she's told all the oil you sell where you want. Take it. Give me my money and keep me in power. That's her story. It's very clear. And when the next thing is this is a very funny thing. You see the American media, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and Washington Post. All these are anti-Trump, left-leaning media. They're talking that this lady, from being a pariah, she's become Trump's favorite poster child for Venezuela. But does it stop here? It doesn't. The Chinese themselves are saying that ships are being kicked back. Tankers which were to go to Venezuela are turning back. Why? They're all dark shipping. So the dark shipping today has been disrupted. Who are the biggest beneficiaries of dark shipping? Russia and China. Russia to some extent, but China more. Because Chinese dark shipping was all about Iran, Russia, and Venezuela. All three. Dark shipping is now, I wouldn't say cornered, but collared. It's going to start hitting the Russian economy if the dark shipping goes on. We know that. And that boarding of two vessels in the North Atlantic, one vessel, Russia has not responded so far. It cannot respond. China can't respond. So the needle is moving. Please understand this. Whatever happens in Iran, I'm sure the dark shipping is going to get targeted. If the dark shipping gets targeted, whatever happens elsewhere is China starts losing influence. It's not a matter of economy, it's a matter of influence. Remember, 6 months back, when that midnight hammer took place, and Trump dropped his, those bombs, GRU bombs in Esfahan, okay, and all that story which was happening. What did China do? Nothing. Everyone was watching what China is doing. Nothing. What did China do in the Red Sea? Fighting Houthis? Nothing. What is China doing? It's paying off Somalian pirates ransom money. It's not prepared to fight. People are watching. Okay? It's not only this. Colombia, Gustavo Petro, who was their prime minister, when Venezuela happened, he was ranting and raving against Trump. 2 days later, he starts talking to Trump. 3 days later, he starts this pressure from Trump, revives Colombia's war against rebel group. Who are this rebel group? Extreme left, part of the drug syndicate, part of the drugs movement into USA. In fact, yesterday I saw a article which said, look, earlier the indication is on the streets, fentanyl. Okay, people used to be treated for fentanyl overdose. One doctor was saying that I used to treat 9 to 10 cases per day of fentanyl overdose. He says today it's come down to 1 to 2. The needle is shifted. And where was fentanyl coming from? China. Who are the guys who are helping China? These rebel shibbles, all these fellows. They're all extreme left chaps. And all these guys were getting support from their left-leaning governments. Now this is gone. This Colombia turnaround is significant. People don't understand this. Then you look at Panama. Panama, the case has gone to the court. Who's the case has gone to the court? You see, there is two ports in Panama Canal on either side called Cristobal and something else. I'm forgetting it. One is Cristobal on the eastern coast, and I'm forgetting the other one on the other side. Both are with the CK Hutchison, Lakashing Group, Chinese. That fellow was being forced to sell. China intervened by through a legal thing that you can't sell it. So the Panamanian AG, he went to his own court, Supreme Court, to say that these chaps are frauding. Their accounting is thing, and everything is the extension given to these ports to continue to operate is not correct, and all that. And that Supreme Court is to decide any day now. If my own government, if just think in India, if a government goes to Supreme Court and say this chap is a fraud, you think Supreme Court will say anything else? That too in Panama, which is a small uh, you know country, and Panama didn't exist before the Panama Canal was made. It was a country created by USA, and Marco Rubio had gone there last year and told, "कि भाई reverse karo usko." So Panama is gone. It's a matter of time. The writing is on the wall. So you look at this map. Venezuela gone, Colombia gone, the northern tip of South America gone. Ecuador, any case, is this thing. Peru. What had China done in Peru? They had this Chanque port. Last year, Xi Jinping went to inaugurate it. Deep sea port. Peru was to connect with all these countries here. Brazil, Venezuela, Guyana, roadways and bridges, all this over Andes. See, the thing is, this is the Andes spine. Huh? So they wanted to go around and make tunnels and all that. That was also supposed to be a BRA project. Gone. And I read an article last week sometime. Peru itself, the Chanque port people are worried because if you don't get that movement in and out of that port, the port collapses. Port will be there, but financially it won't be viable, and it's now being operated by a Chinese company because Peru alone can't absorb China's imports. So this entire belt, China's influence is virtually gone. Virtually, it will still have because there are a lot of trade relations. People have been given money. Yeah, it will continue, but government switching is interesting. And next is Cuba. If Cuba falls, today also Vladimir Putin has come out strongly for Cuba, supporting. We will support Cuba, all that. Okay, you support Cuba, so what if? But what are you going to do to support Cuba? Cuba has always survived. Cuba is not a rich country. In fact, Cuba, I'll put it as a poor country. It was being supported by Venezuela. Everyone thought around the turn of the century, Cuba will go. Fidel Castro had become old. He was not changing power, and it had it had become so impoverished that it didn't know what to do. But Hugo Chavez came up in Venezuela. He started bankrolling Cuba, and Cuba started giving manpower to Venezuela. That was the arrangement. That's broken now. Gone. No more free oil to Cuba, and no more manpower from Cuba to Venezuela. They say if you want to come, you come. We'll hire you, but nothing free of cost. So if Cuba goes tomorrow, okay, if Cuban government collapses and if Cuba goes, then you're seeing an epochal change. The pivot. It's gone. This is Cuba, just next to Miami. That's why I said the needle is moving. Okay, you just think and combine this with Iran. What's happening? We're not able to do anything. So the Chinese influence is waning. Yeah, he'll still export. There are contracts. There are still he'll operate ports. Everything is there. He'll do. But that fear that China will take over the world and they will be that's all gone. He's now looking at defending himself. There's a problem in this. The problem is, what do we do? How do you assess what China is going to do? Have we made an assessment about that? Because China is not going to keep quiet. I'll talk of this. China is not going to keep quiet. It's going to do something. So we need to reassess what China will do against us. Will it do against us or with us? And there are indications about which I will talk of it. Okay? We have to do something. It's just not that you say I'm okay. I have this period where I can sit quietly and do what I want. There are threats to India's growth story. Awareness. Okay? Yeah. Now let's talk of this, the internal story. There's this article in South China Morning Post by Ningrong Liu. He's a professor in a university. He says China's economy is struggling even as its high tech sector booms. Actually, this headline caught my thing. I didn't see the for about 2 3 days. It kept coming back to me. Then I read the article. Uh, Now I'll give a context. Around 2014-15 or 16, if you read South China Morning Post and you see the articles and the opinions, then there was a time when Hong Kong was under one country, two systems. Hong Kong had a different system altogether. It was not under PRC direct. It came in 2019. Okay. So that was the time when protests were taking place. 2019 was a time when Hong Kong changed hands to PRC completely. Oh. So if you see the posts of that time, they were pretty analytical. They had their own system. There were freedoms of speech. So South China Morning Post at that point of time, I thought gave some of the best commentary on many things of that area. Okay. And then, of course, that was the time when Alibaba took over. And mind you, Jack Ma, under Jack Ma, this South China Morning Post was pretty balanced. Maybe a little touch to oriented towards Chinese. The Chinese influence started coming, but it was balanced. 2019, around the time COVID took 1920, around the COVID time. By 21, South China Morning Post was a completely communist rag. Maybe completely. The reporting was more on, PRC, greatness, military, Xi Jinping, yeah, all that. But they used to have a certain amount of openness in the way they reported. Some minuscule. But come in the past 2 years, there's no difference between what comes in South China Morning Post and Guancha and other Weibo and Beidou and all that. I'm not able to access Beidou for some reason. So that's why I don't get from there because there's more masala in that. It is that these days, in that frame, I see in these days of late a shift in happening in South China Morning Post report and their opinions. This article caught my eye. And then I read through it. And I think we should all understand what's happening in China. Because it's an internal view and it's a pretty straightforward, balanced view. He talks of China as part of, fire and ice. So let's read what he says. And then you'll understand. And for the first time, I saw a balanced article coming out of South China Morning Post after a long time. How they allowed it, I don't know. Whether it's a policy shift, I don't know. Whether it is because of the fact that there's some weakness somewhere too early. But that subtle thing which I saw, I thought I'll put it across to you. And what he says, this is a very interesting comment he makes of the Chinese economy. He says the Chinese economy looks more resilient than it feels. At the same time, it feels more stagnant than it looks. There are two stories, or there are two sides to the story of the Chinese economy. Okay? And he's written about both the sides, and we'll read it. He says, China's pivot to a tech driven economy is thrilling, but its success will be judged by how it improves people's everyday lives. It doesn't matter whether you make EVs or AI or whatever. How does it affect the life of the common citizen? That's the thing. And especially in a time when China is switching to being a tech powered economic era. Now, he says the pace and quality of the nation's future growth will depend on the ability of these knowledge intensive hubs to innovate, navigate global headwinds, and seize opportunities in emerging industries. Global headwinds are increasing for China. Now, very clear that Trump has got no love lost for China and his aim is China. Even when he goes to Greenland, his aim is China. And correctly so. So he says all this big talk about AI and tech and all that will depend on how people's lives are affected and how they navigate global headwinds. It makes interesting reading, so bear with me. It says across China's high tech parks, energy is palpable. A lot of people here also talk of this. If you see Chinese trolls who come on this and talk, they talk only of this. Oh, I do this. I have high speed trains and AI and things like that. Passionate entrepreneurs turn fresh ideas into viable ventures. Debate fills cafes, focused on the next breakthrough. This dynamism affects economic vitality, as evidenced by a steady surge in new tech firms. In 2025, it's not a joke. It's very good. You got to hand it to them that there were 1 million new enterprises which were established in China's emerging and future industries, and 775,000 were only in IT and advanced manufacturing and future industries. Okay, and the future industries added 35% to the growth story, number of companies in 25. So there's a huge upsurge in this. I mean, does it say something? It does say something. They're working at scale. At the same time, something is happening here also. I spoke about it last week about AI, the AI stack, India AI stack, which is being made, startup things, everything. Things are being made. It's not as if we are left out. But in China, it's at a different scale. Now the thing is, China's strategic shift because Xi Jinping is betting on this towards high tech innovation as a primary economic driver showed early success in 2025. Okay, but later it has waned off. Sectors such as new energy vehicles, industrial robots, AI, and advanced electronics are contributing substantially to the GDP, no doubt, but it is waning. Now, their high tech sector share of GDP was last year 16.8, and this year it's going to be about 18.3% of the GDP. They are the main shock absorber and they are offsetting slowdown in others. But the fact is, it's only 18% still. Just property alone at its heyday in China was 30%. Property, infrastructure, education, and fintech was about 45 to 50% of China's economy. That's gone. And the replacement is only 18% of this, and with that dominating. And he talks of, he says, that's the fire of the Chinese economy. The ice, the cold thing is this, the downturn is not going away. Household wealth, local government finances, and banking sector all on a limb. The debts of the government finances and the banking sector are huge. People are not, banks are not pushing highly indebted debtors into bankruptcy because it looks bad on books. It looks good in on my books that you owe me something. If that is taken off, then nothing. Your assets are gone. They don't want financial insolvency being triggered. That's what he says. And then he says headline GDP growth, which many people come and talk. Oh, they have achieved 5% GDP growth. He says it failed to translate into broad-based public confidence or prosperity. You can have growth, but has it changed how people live? Internally, this is a very intrusive article. I actually almost missed it. And the moment I read it yesterday in detail, I said, yeah, I must put it across to you. The two articles which triggered today's talk was this and that one on Cambodia. Needle is definitely moving. I am now confident to say that this thing is moving. And the rest of this year, notwithstanding the fact that, Canada PM has gone to China, made a deal, and a lot of talk, and Canada being Canada, you will see things coming out. That's a different story altogether. But one Canada doesn't make, will not revive China's influence. And within China itself, this deal with Canada is surprisingly not getting, that hype which it used to happen earlier. This graph is in this article. All these violet lines are the property sector contribution to the economy. It's pulling the economy down. Period. And then he says in this, employment prospects and consumer sentiment are down. Growth in household consumption has slowed markedly. Then the very interesting thing, high-tech and advanced manufacturing sectors have a limited capacity to absorb labor. I'll spend a little time on this because they might be high-tech. They want young people. They're startups. They can't afford old people. Why they can't afford old people? There is some law in China which says if you're over 35, you have to be paid more and you have to be given a pension and all that. So the trend line in China today is if you're 35, you're unemployable. You're out. You're out of the equation. No one employs you. Okay? They'll employ you when you're young because a young chap, you don't have to pay less. He's prepared to work more. By the time you're 35, other things happen. So the employment of these chaps and absorption to these great high tech sectors is low. One. Number two, there is a analysis which says that look, that because this guy is, everyone in China now is conscious of the fact that I will get a job till 35. After that, I don't know whether I'll get a job or not. People are not marrying. People are not marrying. And the downward effect on the demography. Says, what happens if I 35, I have a child and a thing and I'm unemployed? So I don't want to marry. And this is coming from males now. So there are major issues in this whole story which we need to understand. And then he says dynamism in these sectors is disconnected from the daily economic reality of many people. They can be dynamic, but daily, what does that armed guy do who's not in these sectors? Profit margins remain low. This is what I was saying. There's price competition, involution, significant overcapacity. And now China is trying to remove government subsidies to reduce involution. They find that they're only giving subsidies to a lot of people who are living off these subsidies. Factories are living off these subsidies without making a profit. And how long can the Chinese government keep giving subsidies? So reduction of Chinese subsidies is going to happen this year, next year, slowly. There's no profitability in these sectors. I mean, just think, this is a fact. He says in 2025, the overall operating margin for China's auto industry was less than 5%. That's it. All these, what I'm talking of, are opinions coming from Chinese professors. Western companies are reducing their footprint. Microsoft is going, Oracle is going, IBM is going, Amazon is going. They don't want to go. They're laying off people. Whether they make a profit there or not is a different thing. That they're going off and there are no jobs. So there is problem. Now there's going to be a rebound problem, which is something which we have to understand. And this comes out in this article. It says China's slowing growth, bilateral tensions, they top American business concerns in 2026. Because America has invested so much in China, EU has invested so much in China. If China slows down, it's going to affect their businesses. It's going to happen this year. So let's see how this rebound plays out. I mean, I'll be interested to see. Does that give an opportunity to us, as far as I'm concerned? Today in China, I mean, I'm coming to the next point. In China, there are, if you put your money in a bank, you get 0.75% interest, FDs. Shady banks, shadow banks, and all give you 0.95. No one gives you 1% also. So now people are investing in gold. Why? Because gold gives you 1.78% interest. That's fine because today gold prices are high. Right? What happens 3 years later if when the gold prices will go down? Because gold swings wildly. Okay. But then today this is the state of China. Middlemen have returned in China, which the Communist Party had eliminated middlemen. Now China is targeting wealthy people to get money. Where will they get money from? How much can they milk the poor? So they're milking the wealthy people. So throughout this year, you'll see this story. And this is another article I saw, which it actually surprised me. Why China's next development priority must be secondary education. We always thought that China produces the best engineers, yeah, all that highly educated society, literate society, Communist Party success and all. Then why is this kind of article coming out where they say the priority must be secondary education? Obviously, like I said, the the reporting pattern is slightly shifted. I couldn't have thought of an article like this coming out, say, uh, f- maybe a month, two back. No, yeah, maybe a month, two back, I didn't see such articles. But now they're coming out. So there's a shift. What is the shift? Is it political, internal? What? I'll be interested in seeing. And why is China not earning? Because exports to US have plunged and others are not profitable. This this article confirms what that fellow has written, that Liu guy, about fire and ice and all that. Chinese tourists are going but spending less. Sovereign investors have cut their investment into China. Who are sovereign investors? Governments. Governments earlier, if you go back in 2018, 17 and all, used to invest their pension funds into China, Chinese stocks. That's gone. And then, of course, this is horrible. Can you imagine? They say that in the next few years, already they have more than 400 million people who are obese. And these guys are all the younger lot. How has China become an obese country? The normal image of Chinese people were thin and wiry people. They themselves are saying they are obese. So who am I to say no? That's why that shift. All small restaurants are starving at the bottom. People are not eating out. Indications. These are all indications. Now let me come spend 2 3 minutes on our India story. This article came out. I wouldn't say this article. This news has been out in the week for the past 1 week. Reliance went to a company called Lithium to get battery technology. They had a joint venture partnership AO that failed. Okay. Why did it fail? Because the Chinese government said no technology for India. This is China. So China is very conscious of the fact, after all this, that they will not give you anything to do with technology. They'll sell you a battery but not give you the technology. They want your markets but they don't want to give you anything. So it is in this kind of a scenario. What do we do? What does our government do? We have to see. I mean, that is where the stupidity of letting the Chinese Communist Party delegation to come to India. Why did it come? Why is the government saying we will open Chinese thing to our contracts? Why should they come here at all? Because they're not going to give you technology. They want your markets. They want to exploit you. So why should you allow them? And the repercussion of all what is happening elsewhere, where will it come? It will come on India. So shouldn't we think differently? Okay? Shouldn't we think differently? So my view is that we have to think differently about China. China remains our number one adversary. Let's not have any doubts. Because I can talk of Tibet. There's an article on Tibet which I'll analyze down the line on what's happening in Tibet. infrastructure, ye, wo. They just want infrastructure there. Whether it's of any use to man or beast, it doesn't matter. Because infrastructure revives their economy and the GDP figure. That's it. So there is a problem which we have to now start facing. Our growth cannot be presaged on Chinese technology. They are not prepared to give you anything. So why should I get in? And on the other hand, they're going to be against you everywhere. The narrative of Pakistan, J17, yeah, which we spoke of. Right? So fine. So this is where I'll stop for the day. I know there's a Chinese who's yapping. He's come basically why? Because it pinches him. It pinches him. So you don't give us technology, you don't come here. Yeah, get lost. You do what you want. You go and go to Colombia. Let Xi Jinping go to Colombia. Let him go to Canada. No, we don't need him here. Okay. And so we are there. Let it go down. They'll come like dogs. Let me tell you this. Okay. So fine. This is where I end. We'll take some questions.